Welcome into another edition of the Kevin and Jason Show. I'm one of your hosts today, Kevin Masseri, here for the weekly Bills versus Redskins game preview. Another game that's going to be a little bit tough to analyze. The Redskins roster is going to resemble a lot like the Dolphins, so this might sound a little bit like that a couple weeks ago. Got to try to keep it as fresh and interesting as possible, talking about a few key matchups. A couple nuggets from the Redskins. What they're doing well, they have some shockingly high-rated players and some shockingly low-rated players. So we're going to get into some of that and where we think the Bills can exploit it with this bad weather potentially here in Orchard Park. Jason, how are you today?
Kevin, I am as good as you can be with this weather.
Yep.
Thank God I didn't have to go trick-or-treating with anybody today. You didn't take out little Tommy today, right?
No, little Tommy had a pre-shoot before the weather got bad. We dressed him up, and he's a little too small to eat candy. Next year's going to be his big reveal.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what he's going to be. I felt bad for any parent that had to go out today.
You know what we saw here, and it's, we don't have the culture that, I'm no longer in Buffalo. I'm an hour away now. I had a couple parents with beers. I was impressed, and my wife said to me, we should hand out those little liquor shots. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. That would cost more than the candy. I'm thinking about that. I'm like, those are $1 a piece, right?
I don't know the way that candy's going. You might be able to,
I know.
It might be shifting at this point. If you only have to hand out a couple bottles and 4 bags of candy, I think that the economics might shift over to liquor.
Yeah, it could. I mean, the economics could be, as long as you don't have a lot, then yeah, the economics are in your favor. So it's an interesting idea, and then she mentioned like, oh, if this was Buffalo, you'd have to give out like so many. And I'm like, yeah, probably true. Like if I was still in Tonawanda, yeah, I mean, everyone's, the culture there is strong. But we were giving out 2 pieces of candy, Jason, and I did have a Tom Brady show up. And I was like, can you just do one on him? Like, that's the area in a nutshell. But happy Halloween to everyone. Thanks for tuning in and listening to this preview edition where I think, in my personal opinion, this is the worst team the Bills play. I think they're worse than the Dolphins. You go back and forth at certain position groups. I think that they would have lost had Fitzpatrick played that game and it wasn't Rosen. They played really well in the fourth. And Fitzpatrick's a serviceable quarterback. I watched him, play last week against Pittsburgh. He played well in the beginning. The team just doesn't have a lot of talent, but neither does Washington, Jason. And we're going to get into it here. And I guess their defense isn't statistically atrocious. It's bad. They have a few players that have held it down and have had a pretty decent defensive line of Idonis, Payne, and Elam, who they've spent some picks there to assemble. They also have their sweat. There's 2 sweats in the league, and they have Montez Sweat in the first round, who's played fairly well. Ryan Kerrigan's gone downhill, and they started a whole combostic combination there, and it's been pretty bad. Josh Norman's been bad. They're really banged up at safety. Landon Collins was going to make run-stopping plays, but can get beat badly in coverage. They have an Apke 4-3 guy that a little bit about, and their best player on defense, Dunbar. Go figure that Quentin Dunbar, college free agent in 2015, is the number 1 rated PFF corner. At some point, yeah, you can question, PFF stats, but to get the 1 ranking, I mean, you can at least say that guy's
good season.
He's playing good. He's playing good.
Yeah.
He's playing good football. And I'd imagine, weirdly to say, he'll be watching a lot of John Brown.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that this team, I would put them as the second worst team we've played so far.
Okay. So you like Miami better as a worst team?
As a worst team, yes. Yeah. I like them less. And maybe part of it, I'm a little, I like some of the Redskins prospects more, where maybe they're at this point at the team's development, and especially if we're seeing Dwayne Haskins, maybe those teams are about the same to me. But I would say just some guys that I think are going to be decent players down the road. I mean, I think Terry McLaurin's going to be really good. I think Harmon has a chance to be decent. I still think Sprinkle has the sort of size and athleticism to be decent. Trey Quinn, that whole defensive line are all talents that could definitely pull through. It seems like Jonathan Allen and Duran Payne are on their way. It doesn't look like Fabian Moreau will be on his way, but you never know. We saw that Troy Apke played well last week, and he was a guy with 4.3 speed coming into the draft as a 4th round pick. And Miami, just after you trade away Minka Fitzpatrick, past Preston Williams and maybe a player on their defense, there really is nothing going forward as far as that team goes. And I think that Washington is a team that at least has more to feel good about the guys on their current roster. So I guess that's where I'm coming from as far as that goes. And if you have players with that kind of talent, maybe something, spouts off one week. I wouldn't count on it with Washington this year with the way they've played, but you never know. I feel
Jason,
the same about both teams mostly.
Yeah, they've scored 35 points in the last 5 weeks.
That's 7. That's really easy math. 7
yeah,
in a week.
Yeah, it's what NFL teams are doing in a week. The Bills have a bad offense and or not playing well right now offense, and then they're even maybe 2 weeks worth of offense for them. But that's a week's worth of offense for a good NFL team, and they're doing it over 5 games. They've scored 9 points in the last 2 games, and their numbers of those 35 points, 17 of them are against Miami. So half of them were in one of the weeks against Miami. So they've scored.
It's not good.
It's not 3 against New York Giants, 7 against New England. That's fine. 0 against San Fran. I guess that's fine. 9 against Minnesota. So there's been some decent teams. But they can't move the football with Case Keenum. He is like a Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's a smart player. He gets the ball. They're like really the same guy. I would imagine him having the same type of career when it's all said and done.
Sure. Maybe less teams.
Yeah, maybe less
not
teams.
Less teams.
Really, Ryan got the teams later, and you have a chance to go 5 for 5 on teams like coming up here for Keenum. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
They acquired him from Denver in a trade, by the way. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was right before the season.
So
they needed somebody because they
had Colt McCoy. I don't know.
It was very weird, and I do think that there's a disconnect between what Jay Gruden wanted at the time and maybe what Bruce Allen and the regime wanted at the time. Even though they had been together for so long, a surprising amount of time. I think they wanted different things in their quarterbacks. I think Jay Gruden didn't really want Dwayne Haskins. He was like a Colt McCoy guy.
Yep.
Management wanted Keenum or Haskins, but not McCoy. So it was just kind of an interesting situation. But I mean, even if you go into it, yeah, very Fitzpatrick. Like Keenum's completing 67% of his passes, 9 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. You can not lose games like that if you're a decent team with decent weapons and
I'd like him. I mean, I would take him. I mean, he's better than Barkley. I mean, I'm not sorry, Matt Barkley. I like you as a backup. But I would love him on my team. The only problem is you get into that realm of Ryan Fitzpatrick where he just starts taking like developmental quarterbacks jobs. And I thought they, really already had him on their team with Colt McCoy, but I think he's like one of the same players there. So they have a couple of these guys, and Matt Barkley's kind of another one, even though he started to play better in his Cincinnati days and then into Buffalo. But I don't know where you stand on this, Jason. We'll get into the next topic here in a second, but real quickly on the injury report, they're missing their 2 players, their second and third safety, Monte Nicholson and Deshazier Everett. Usually are their 2 second and third. That's what led Apke into the lineup as their 4 safety, but he'll be starting next to Landon Collins. And also Thompson and Peterson did not practice for both. So all 4 of those guys haven't practiced, not likely to play. Peterson obviously probably will. The other 3, I would doubt play.
Adrian Peterson.
Yeah,
he's going to play.
He's going to show up and play football
40 times.
Right. But Chris Thompson's a big loss if he doesn't go. He's like really one of their 3 beside Peterson and McLaurin. He's their other weapon on offense. Vernon Davis has been in a concussion limited participant. That's scary because he hasn't been cleared in a while. Dunbar actually didn't practice Wednesday, but he practiced today. So good for their best at this current year, their best defensive player. Case Keenum is still on concussion protocol. A lot of people are saying Haskins are going to start. So that's a good place to kind of pick this up, Jason. So you have a concussed limited practice Case Keenum who isn't taking many reps. Not like the week Josh Allen took all the reps and everyone's like, yeah, I mean, he's going to play. He's going to get cleared on Saturday. Right. We did this with the Giants, right? Where do you stand on the Case Keenum versus Dwayne Haskins in terms of looking at it from a Bills perspective, not from like overall? Would you rather play a concussed, limited practice Case Keenum that gets clear last minute, or would you rather play the rookie who's been awful, which is just really discouraging if you're a Redskins fan? I'm not saying he needs to be a world beater, but he needs to be at least Daniel Jones, and he's not. So where do you stand on this?
Comparing this to the Giants situation, I mean, on its most basic face value, I think Case Keenum's better than Eli Manning was. I think Dwayne Haskins is worse than Daniel Jones was. So, yeah, I'd rather play Dwayne Haskins at this point. I think he's a guy that needs, I think just to show anything, he needs some starts and needs some experience, and he needs some time to work with these receivers and do it in games where the game's even close. Like, I think he's just, not only does he have a tough job, but I think that he's got a lot of learning to do. And I think a lot of people assume that quarterbacks who put up big stats, and even for big colleges, have less learning to do than somebody was under the gun and, really having to improvise and stuff. And I think you've learned that with, maybe Josh Allen being slightly more ready than some people thought, but definitely Daniel Jones, who had to run around, make plays. He learned what a pass rush was very quickly. And then you have Dwayne Haskins, who played at Ohio State for one season and always had guys open. He had 3 NFL receivers to throw to, had an offensive line that is pretty much going to send everybody to the NFL. And he just cakewalked his way to throwing 50 touchdowns, even against good teams. They weren't very close to them until they really started to play really good teams. So, I think that's a guy that's far less prepared than a lot of your normal quarterbacks, even guys that went to smaller schools. And I think I think the Bills are going to be another lesson for him if he does play. And I think the next team that he plays is going to be another lesson.
So is that
he gets to the point where he shows anything?
Haskins that you So what's your final?
Well, if we want to win the game, I'd rather play Haskins at this point. I don't think Case Keenum getting a ton of snaps this week is going to necessarily matter. I mean, if he's out of, it's not like an arm or a shoulder or a leg where, he's playing at 70%. He's either going to get cleared at 100% brain capacity or he's not. And I'm not necessarily sure that doing anything more than warm-ups is going to make a huge difference in how he plays in this game. But Haskins right now at his current developmental path, and I think he's got a shot to still make it. I don't think he's there yet where he's going to be any sort of a threat for the Bills.
Okay. So you think that even concussed, he's going to get 100%, no issues, not seeing ghosts, no issues. So you'd still rather play Haskins, is that right? Rather than see Keenum suit up? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if Keenum's cleared to play, I'd rather see Haskins play.
Okay. Well, that's going to be something to watch. We'll see that. Probably won't even know that tomorrow. Might be a Saturday situation. He looks a little further behind than where Josh Allen was, so it makes this one a little bit trickier.
Do we know the stage he's in?
Limited would mean stage 3, based on when I did all my Josh Allen research.
So he'd have to progress
to 4 tomorrow. If he's not in 4, yeesh. Then you can, if he goes full practice tomorrow, or they say it's a little bit tougher to know. But if he's a limited participant tomorrow, it starts to get a little bit more fishy, like a little bit more unlikely he plays.
I think
if he goes full,
Haskins,
then you don't know. Know. It could go either way, because that means he progresses. And then if he shows no symptoms on Saturday, then he can play. If he shows symptoms on Saturday, he wouldn't be cleared until the next week. So you're right. And they have a bye after the Bills, right? So, I mean, I think all of those amount to not rushing your concussion guys back, which are, they just have 2, which is Vernon Davis and Case Keenum. So I would think they both sit. If they were the Bills, they would, unless Josh Allen was cleared. The Bills generally will sit you. We've seen that with soft tissue injuries. We've seen that pretty much with everyone so far on this roster, except, they even stashed Corey Thompson till this week, it looks like. So I think that they would be sitting, but he's not as far along.
Lose games,
I think, but at the same time, just play Colt McCoy, right? If you're trying to lose this game, you don't want to throw out Haskins.
I think Haskins is the double. I think he gets experience and you get to lose the game. I think.
Okay. All right.
I'm not huge. And honestly, the Bills aren't the team that's going to sack him 12 times probably. I'm more of a proponent of getting these guys experience rather than having them in there is going to ruin his career. I think he's got enough
I agree
receivers
with
to
you.
throw to.
I agree with
Like
you.
maybe David Carr getting sacked 70 times in one season might have hurt his psyche, but the fact that we're still really going to the same guy now, Josh Rosen might be the next example of it, but the fact that we have 2 examples of it in 20 years, I'd rather see the guy get experience, and I think they'd rather know whether they think he's got a shot right now, because there's a good chance that there's definitely going to be a new coach in there. There's definitely going to be a new regime.
They might just Rosen him, right? That's possible. They Rosen him for a second round pick.
And somebody will trade a second round pick for him, and they'll be able to do it over again in a draft where they're going to pick top 3 with Tua and Herbert and Burrow and all of that in there.
Right. I mean, not going to lie. I would, as a new regime, I'm going to come in and say, oh, I get another second round pick. I'm not going to look at the pick I wasted. I'm going to say, especially they didn't waste the first overall pick here. It's like a EJ Manuel pick. They're going to say, you know what, if I can even salvage a second or a late second like Miami did and then pick my guy, I mean, I'm 100% going to do that. So I expect that. So I don't see why you wouldn't play him here. If you can't go into Buffalo, and like you said, the Bills did get after Marcus Mariota. He was the guy they just crushed. And the Bills have the possibility. They bring pressure. One of the number 1 blitzers, Taron Johnson, Jason's favorite. He had one last week. Both of our predictions, by the way, from last week went true.
Yeah.
The Taron Johnson blitzing and you had the punt fumble.
Oh yeah.
So interesting that we had those takes.
We still lost.
Did still lose. I would expect of both of those to matter, and neither of them mattered.
Not at all.
So that's disappointing. But the Bills can get out. So it's not like they're incapable, but you're right. It's not like they're guaranteed to absolutely maybe ruin this guy's career. There's a good team with a bad weather with the Bills crowd and that can get into it.
Yeah.
I think you got to see if the guy can play football. It's not like, and the Bills are good, decent, and they're 5-2. You need to go and see if he can at least, you're not 100% looking to win the game. I don't think your organization even is. But you're looking to see if he makes progress, see if he plays good against the secondary, see if he can take a quarter out that looks good, see if he, really anything. Playing Colt McCoy does nothing, and rushing back Case Keenum doesn't do anything for me. They've got their win. I think that the Dolphins will go to Rosen once they get their win, hopefully against the Jets here.
I do think it makes a difference, too, that they have a coach that's not really trying to get a job or save a job here. They have a 63-year-old offensive line coach who's already coached in the league. Isn't a particularly.
He's trying to get another
prospect.
offensive line coaching job.
He's trying to get another job. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Assistant head coach,
an offense coordinator. He's trying to show the rest of the league that he can do a decent job with this. But by no means are Washington hiring Bill Callahan next year. So
right.
Why do the Keenum thing? I think he knows people can see if he's handled this situation well. If Haskins and Geis and McLaurin are better than people thought they were at the beginning of the year. He can look really good about that, and he can carry that to another team.
Exactly.
And he's not doing the Keenum thing where it's like, Brian Flores right now is trying to win 2 games so he can keep his job. You just can't keep your team at 0-16.
And he's played some too. And he's done some good things to really do it out. He played well, good game plan in Buffalo and played New England well at points in the game and did well against Pittsburgh.
Right.
But I don't think you see that here.
16.
Right. I don't think you see that here this week. I think it's being ran by the GM, said, hey, if we put you as the head coach and, you give you that title, you're going to listen to what we say. So I think that GM is going to say, I need to play Haskins here because I don't know how much time I have to prove it. So
that's the thing. That's the thing that makes the GM look good.
Right.
I mean, at this point, he's at the end of his line. Bruce Allen, I believe, he's been there for a long time. He seems to have infinite trust from Dan Snyder, but eventually,
right,
him or if Jason Garrett falls again or whatever, you don't get trust forever. And
nope.
The best way that he can salvage a team that's already 0-7 is having Terry McLaurin become a superstar, or Dwayne Haskins like a franchise quarterback, or Darius Geis come back and play more than 10 snaps in the game, or finding Kelvin Harmon in the 6th round. That's how he's going to save his job. So guess what? Those guys are going to play probably before they're supposed to.
Right.
And the team that gets the benefit from that is the Bills.
I agree. I think this is a worse team. So I'm still going to pray. I'm still going to go off of that they're not as good as Miami. That's weird to say. They win that game in overtime, and Miami would have won if they played Fitzpatrick the whole game. So this is a team that has a few offensive players, like you mentioned, McLaurin, a couple offensive linemen we didn't mention, Sheriff and Roulier. Both have played well. Moses, Flowers, and Penn have been bad. They can't even get their third round pick on the field here, which should be playing. And from last year, Gary and Christian. I don't know what you have to lose. They have a Wes Martin behind their guards from a fourth round this year. I don't know why you're not seeing him, which you probably will here soon. Their tight ends without Vernon Davis. They've lost Jordan Reed. You're talking about Jeremy Sprinkle and Hale Hentigas, waivers from Indianapolis. So you're talking about, and then if you're down Thompson and you just have Peterson, behind him, you're talking about Wendell Smallwood, who was part of one of the worst Philadelphia running back crews ever last year. Craig Reynolds, a college free agent this year, and a fullback, and Michael Burton. So there's not much on offense, Jason. They can't do what Philadelphia can do. They don't even have as much, McLaurin aside, they don't even have as much offensive power to me as most of the teams the Bills have played or will be playing. Have a solid defensive line, bad linebacking core, and a player or two in their secondary. I just don't see how you lose this game, Jason. Kind of what's your thoughts?
Yeah, you might as well say that it's over if we lose this game, to be honest, at home. Coming off that Eagles game, the Eagles game wasn't that consequential, but I just think
no, it wasn't.
after the close games that we've had against Miami and Cincinnati, just not really being able to put them away. We've really had one decisive game, and that's the Giants game, where they even kind of crept back a little bit, even though it was never in doubt. We need to have a convincing win. Even if we win this normal, I'm not gonna call it a lost season or anything, but if we lose this game, that just really says a lot about this team's inability. And if we lose this game, it's because the offense didn't move, most likely, or the defense is falling apart, I guess. But probably that our offense didn't move, and we really do have to start executing against one of these teams, one of these weaker teams, even if the defense is a little bit of their stronger unit. This team's for the taking, and they're dejected, and they're figuring out, it's the first half of the season still, and they're trying to figure out what their future is at this point. This is one that you just have to take. So, that's the general take on it. They have no particularly strong position. They have, even when they ran well, now they have two running backs that are hurt. I think Chris Thompson's probably their second biggest offensive weapon to Terry McLaurin. If he doesn't play, because I thought Thompson could, potentially at 100% hurt us in a way that like Miles Sanders did last week. Thompson's a little taller, bigger player, but same sort of back out of the backfield catching threat.
Without him and Vernon Davis, you're down to just Peterson and McLaurin. That's it.
Yeah, and we have it's an injured, or old or injured old Peterson, who they're probably going to. Bill Callahan's going to run the ball. There's no doubt about it, especially if Haskins is playing. We could see Peterson Smallwood combo get 30 carries in this game. And, beyond that, I think McLaurin's a fantastic route runner that could pose problems at times, but he's going to be locked up by Trey White, who is...
And a safety, probably.
Probably, at that point. With, who's allowing the worst passer rating against him in the entire league this year, much like he was for a large portion of his rookie year. I think Trey Quinn might eventually be an okay slot receiver. I think Kelvin Harmon should probably do good things when he's given the shot. I don't think Paul Richardson's much of a receiver. I think he's fast, but not necessarily dynamic at this point at that position. We shouldn't have a problem with this team. That's the answer. Unless Brandon Scherf and Chase Roulier are going to run the ball themselves, I don't think there's going to be anything that sneaks up on us. It's going to be another game that I hope that our pass rush gets to them, because the two tackles are playing very not well, and they have former tackle Eric Flowers moved into left guard, and he's still continuing to not be very good. I don't know. I say it every week, but it would be cool to have just a breakout at Oliver week, or one of the weeks that Jerry Hughes actually turns the hurries into sacks, but we'll see. I mean, we still have the strength of our team as the secondary, and I don't think that they're going to be particularly challenged in this game, no matter who
No,
plays
I don't think so.
quarterback and who's healthy at tight end and et cetera. They're a lockdown unit, and they're going to continue to be.
They'll start with a single coverage white on the McLaurin. If there's any type of issues, they'll easily probably allocate some help if Trey White needs the help, because you're not going to really need it elsewhere. I mean, the Bills injury report is pretty clean. They're pretty healthy. I think I just saw from Spotrac that they have one of the least amount of injured players per dollar. The Vikings and the Rams are right in the top of the league of not having any IR money allocated to their hurt players and their cap.
For this late in the season, they're a remarkably healthy team.
I mean, you're out Harrison Phillips, who
they're not
hurt more than I thought.
Harrison Phillips hurt, but just like, maybe we lose some Lorenzo action this week. Maybe, we've lost a couple games or half games out of offensive linemen, but we've been a really healthy team when it comes down to it compared to, NFL football.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to worry. I mean, Lorenzo's not even on the injury report. Maurice Alexander has a couple of did not practice. So, but the good news is that the guy everyone we stashed and been waiting for, Corey Thompson, probably our next best linebacker, is ready to go. So that's a positive upgrade. Kurt Coleman's been limited. He was last week and played, or did he sit out or play? I can't. I don't. He plays teams if the safeties are healthy, anyways. Cody Ford had limited. Levi Wallace with limited. That's it. I mean, they're all expected to play. There's no issues. Shaq Lawson had a personal day. Frank Gore gets his rest day. I mean, you're looking at sitting out Maurice Alexander, who would, to activate Thompson, you would need to sit someone anyways there. So sure. There's that. So what do you kind of like my last thoughts on these games where I want as many. Okay, so I got to put this out there because I didn't, we didn't put it out on the last show. I can't do any more active Sonoris Perry for my special teams unit, especially with like a Corey Thompson coming back. And you have safeties allocated here. You have other corners. I can't do it anymore, Jason. When you're resting one of my favorite sleeper players in Isaiah McKenzie. I can't do Sonoris Perry needs to be at. I mean, if you want Robert Foster active and 6 receivers with different weapons, activate them all. I can't do I need a Sonoris Perry running down and covering kicks that bad when you're, how should kick that out of the end zone with the wind all game. I can't do it. I can't do it.
You don't generally see 6 active receivers, but when you consider that, Andre Roberts is your kick punt returner.
He's a kick punt returner.
Robert Foster is a guy that can and does play teams and worked very hard at it.
Duke Williams,
same. McKenzie, same. And the fact that McKenzie is your 6th receiver, like his job on offense is to play 3 plays a game and make one dynamic play.
And he does, though.
And it's proven to be very effective at this point. So
he's better at the 3 to 5 plays than Robert Foster is.
He is right now. Year. I mean, yeah, we're trying. I'm desperately hoping that Robert Foster
and I want Foster to be active. I'm not advocating for Robert Foster to be inactive. I'm advocating for a freaking special teamer that you just signed that you cannot go the whole season without the first time. You're just like, I need Sonoris Perry. The second we waived him, we came to our terms and needed him right back the second the legal out it. I don't think he matters. I don't think he moves the needle at literally at all. At all. I don't think he makes your team any better on special teams. I'm sorry. You have enough allocated players. The special teams is average. It still falters. It was bad last week again. I forgot who missed their block on that extra point. I can't even think of it right now, but you also allocate tight ends to your units. I'm done with it. You need to play your offensive weapons and play them.
They have the 5 safeties that all
they all are active.
3 can play special teams. The backup 3 linebackers all heavily
when healthy
on special teams.
The receivers, 2 receivers play it. Tight ends, 2 tight ends play it. Again, Knox plays it. I've seen him. Lee Smith plays it. You're forgetting Patrick DeMarco plays it.
Right. Basically, Patrick.
I'm fine with Patrick DeMarco getting the special team / limited work spot. I'm cool with that. I can't do the 4th running back / and I'm not even going to get into inactivating TJ Yeldon for it either. So I'm talking about pick your weapon. Do you think you get more to McKenzie or Yeldon and activate him, please? Because your offense needs it. You're not playing with, Aaron Rodgers offense number 1 rated where it's like, yeah, whatever. Well, but you go to an offense like that and they would activate them all because quite frankly, that team can't even keep receivers. So
right.
I just think it's weird that you're like, well, my offense has been pretty poor, below average, we'll say. And you know what? Let's inactivate Sonoris Perry today. That's I'm gonna play him in the wind.
If you had to sit a receiver, like at this point, like the way he's being used, like Foster probably is the guy you have to do. But the fact is that the choice can be between him and Perry, and it's like, oh yeah, I don't get it. I know that special teams are important, but there you have so many players that are dedicated to it, and we're not very good at it anyways. And we did spend a lot of the offseason training these receivers to be multifaceted in that sort of way.
That's why Foster's still on the team, probably, because he showed he could play it, and Duke Williams
showed that he was able to do it, and they showed Duke Williams seemed to have shown enough to be able to do it. Yeah, you just need to have enough guys on offense, like, to make plays. And there were so many situations in that last game where it was like, man, I wish we could use McKenzie's 2 plays right now. Like, when they seem really stagnant, they run him around on that jet sweep. Maybe they fake it the first time, or they hand it off to him, and suddenly that's another weapon. And they're thinking about that every time it comes on the field.
That was a bad inactive, Jason. There's no other way to put it.
Pretty unstoppable, yeah.
It's a bad inactive. You're gonna the 3 to 5 plays that he gets in a game, and it is literally more snaps than that.
But there was games like, I think his biggest game of the year, he played like 2 snaps. I think he had 2 big runs or whatever it was, or it was like 4 snaps. Like, he's had games where he's played more, but he can do that on very limited. And the fact is that that's not a reason to discount him. Like,
right.
If you get a big player or 2 out of a player in a game, they should be playing. Like, you're not going to get that on a Sonoris Perry, and it just is what it is.
Yep. I just had to take a minute here on the pod to rant about the inactive too.
Well, you waited 8 weeks to do it again, so that took a lot of courage.
For what? What specifically you mean?
Well, the complaint about Sonoris Perry. It's been since like preseason week 3 that we had to do a Sonoris Perry.
Once McCoy left the roster, like, it was like, all right, fine. But he was hurt. I just can't do what the inactive. Like, if they were like injury ridden and Perry was one of the guys in the roster, like, you know what, we really need him active. Teams there, he's the backup running back because Gore's hurt, whatever, which I'd still play Yeldon. Okay, there's a situation where I'm not going to be like too mad about Sonoris Perry. I'll complain about him on the roster probably, but I'm not going to really push the needle. When you're inactivating Isaiah McKenzie and a TJ Yeldon, and you need to find playmakers on offense, I can't. I think it's a bad decision. I'm not going to lie. I think it's a really bad decision to not have, to me, one of my reasonably good players for what he does. He has 112 yards and a touchdown this season, and played well against Tennessee, 2 for 52. Changed the game at one point with a big 46-yard catch. And had that touchdown in the New York game, and wasn't used really in Miami or didn't play in Philly. I think you get him back in the offense, and I think he does certain things well. You have Beasley that does something. You have Brown that does something. I think he does a certain play well, and I think you got to have him active. So we'll see if he's active this week, Jason. I don't know where. I think they're fairly healthy, so I don't know where their inactive is going to come unless it's Foster. But I think at some point you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, how much does Perry help our special teams, especially when
people argue like, all right, so we don't know what we're talking about. The coaches, like, they see them in practice. They know how important people are, whatever. It's more important to have, special teams is underrated. It's important to have an entire unit for that. One link in the offensive line makes a bad offensive line, whatever. Playing your 111th and doing a passable job on kick coverage just is not as important as a 46-yard shovel pass that you take in. Like, that playmaking ability is the rare thing you can do. You can go get a Sonoris Perry anytime you want, and you can turn a guy on your team into one. You probably already have him on your team. It's just, I just find it unbelievable, and that there is a difference. Like,
the difference to me between Sonoris Perry playing the majority of special team snaps that go out of the end zone and playing, I guess, whose spot is he taking there? Jaquan Johnson. I don't know. I don't know who he's playing
Right.
over on teams. I wouldn't know who would play if he didn't. He's got, no tackles. I don't know.
Jaquan Johnson's probably the answer.
Yeah, it's probably someone like that.
Yeah.
I've got nothing to say that guy needs to be active to run down. I don't have it. I don't have the answers that's important enough in a game where you're going to inactivate Isaiah McKenzie. It was a bad move. I mean, it quite frankly was not. I didn't see the need to do that. So I hope that once Thompson's back now, I don't know what's going to happen here. I mean, there's really no other injuries beside Maurice Alexander for a week. I hope it starts to come to an end here once Maurice Alexander and Thompson are healthy, potentially next week against Cleveland. That Sonoris Perry's days should be over here. It just doesn't make any sense. There's just no reason that he's an upgrade at that special team spot where you're inactivating good offensive players.
Just the percentages just don't really make sense to put a decent, passable guy over any guy that does any offensive production whatsoever. Right. I mean, if you just look at it, I mean, we've returned 7 kicks this year. One of them was the Micah Hyde onside kick return. Yep. So 7 out of however many there was there, probably over 20. 9 of our 17 punt returns have been fair caught. So over 50% of our punt returns are fair caught.
They're talking about one play a game, 1/11th of one play a game.
Even Corey Bogorek has hit 6 of his 35 punts out of the end zone.
Cool.
15 of them have been inside the 20. I would guess almost all of them were no returns. Another one was blocked. So we're talking 22 out of 35 punts where there was either a minimal or no return. I don't have Hauschka kickoff stats in front of me, but I'm going to assume most of them have gone through the end zone.
A lot of them have, absolutely.
We're really talking about even the plays that go on special teams, 25% of them needing a play to happen,
Yeah, and
short of just blocking.
McKenzie's played a total of 69 snaps, which is already more than what we've just went over there. 21 against in week 7. Almost like a punishment in that. Maybe he didn't do something right in the Miami game because that's what it feels like. He played his most snaps of the game against Miami with 21, 5 in week 5, 1 in week 4, 19 in week 3, 16. So he's gotten some snaps. So he has, in his limited 69 snaps, he's an 81.8 PFF rating, which is the best on the team. Top, it's limited. I mean, but it's not 5 snaps; it's 70.
The point is that he makes his impact made when he's on the field. That PFF number would go down if he had more snaps. But the fact is that doesn't have a 60.
He's played 32 run blocking snaps too, so you can't even say he doesn't.
Might get some positive points on those too. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean it's average. He doesn't have. It's not like he's a bruiser. Duke Williams is a 76.9 on run snaps.
Bruiser.
Yeah, he's a bruiser. So Duke Williams has played a lot of snaps in the last. He's a run blocking. I mean, he's doing what they want him to do. Would like to see a little bit more receiving production out of him, but he's doing everything else right. And Robert Foster played 8 snaps last week, so Robert Foster's actually played a fair amount of snaps. Did you know that Robert Foster's played 64 snaps this season? Doesn't feel like he hasn't played.
The first 2 games he played a lot of snaps and had no production, I believe.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, 38 snaps in the first 2 games, which is a lot.
Yeah, and they just weren't finding him, or he wasn't getting open. He needs a screen pass or something. He needs to touch the ball this season. Sometimes he's just so cold, and especially in the 8 play games, you just got to get him into the game.
Right.
And he's on a 0 catch season going halfway into the year. He's probably in his head. He's went through long stretches of nothing going on in Alabama and an entire first half of a year in Buffalo where he didn't do anything. Get him the ball and just let him use his athleticism. It's clear that he's gotten overthrown a couple times where it wasn't his fault. He had a drop where it was his fault. I just want to see him with the ball in his hands, and it seems like sometimes we are neglecting guys that can actually make plays a little bit. And
right.
we're obviously not just talking about him. We're talking about Devin Singletary, who pretty much does something every play he has, but he gets the ball in. We're talking about Isaiah McKenzie, who they sat last week. Those are 3 playmakers that could be making a difference in games that have difference-changing sort of athleticism with the ball in space. And basically the only guy that they've been able to unlock that with is John Brown. Cole Beasley gets his right at the sticks, first down catches, off
And he's
route running.
and Cole Beasley's a good number 3 receiver. I don't think you
Yeah.
can look at Cole Beasley and say he's not a good number. He is. And I think John Brown's a good number 1. I'm going to go that far to say I think he's a number 1 receiver.
Yeah, I mean, he's on pace for an 1,100 yard a year.
He's a good number 1.
Clearly, yeah. I mean, he's played well.
He's a back end number 1, but he's still a good number 1 receiver in this league. The Bills are missing a number 2 receiver. And you're going in next year with Brown, Beasley, and potentially a draft pick or a free agent, whatever trade, whatever they decide to do there.
Also,
it's going to be a good unit.
In a long, long time.
It's going to be a good unit that they're going to have there potentially next. Even the extra receiver, there's going to help a lot, and the tight ends might actually play the full season. It's going to be a good unit, Jason. And kind of to wrap up this game, do you expect, Singletary had 40 snaps last week, which is a lot. I mean, he's up there. He's going to get, so everyone's like, he played a lot of snaps. What's everybody talking about? I mean, come on. Are we really going to defend it that bad to say that we're all arguing the snaps that Singletary's getting rather than the touches that he's getting? So Singletary's actually been fine on pass block. He's the best rated, 86 on pass block. He's been fine in pass blocks. He's not like a liability there. And Frank Gore's 74 in his 17 pass block snaps, and Devin Singletary's in 86 in his 10. So they don't keep their running backs in the pass block a lot. Played 50-50 on receiving snaps with Gore, actually, believe it or not. Frank Gore has a significantly amount more of total snaps and run snaps. I mean, great you have him in the game. That's a good first step. Clearly, you're willing to play him 40 snaps. So I'd look to build on the 45 to 50 next week, or this week, I should say. Is it just, I mean, you just have to give him the ball, though. Like, at some point, no one's arguing his snap count or arguing his touches. And you can't sit up there week after week and say, well, he played snaps, but, the game flow or the game recognition didn't go to him in that game. Well, go to him, right? Isn't that kind of the wrap that up? Isn't that kind of the theory?
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's not about fairness. It's about a guy's ability to change the game. Like, right. I don't care that they're getting 50-50 snaps. I care that he's getting the ball in those situations.
I'd rather him get 20 touches and 20 snaps than 40 snaps and 5 touches.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, he's been a good pass blocker, but unless he's a game breaker in terms of that, like, but either way, like when he gets his hand on the ball, he's averaging 8.6 yards an attempt. He's averaging 6.4 on receptions, but he, has shown that he can catch the ball pretty well and just make use of space, especially in the running game. But
right,
yeah, we need him to get the ball. It's that simple. I'm not outraged by it, and it was actually something I predicted that his output was going to be reasonably low until maybe later in the season. Make sure he's super, super healthy, because I still believe that they think that he's a guy that can make a difference when it comes down to the bigger games and the playoff games.
Right.
So maybe they're saving him up. Maybe, I do think that they believe that Frank Gore getting at least 50% of the touches is probably the best way to go. And it probably is the best way to make Singletary the most effective player he can possibly be. But they got to up it up a little bit. That's all.
Yep, I agree.
He's too much of a game breaker. And again, we're talking about him. We're talking about we know the type of player that Foster can be. And, the abilities of McKenzie, those guys just weren't utilized to the level that they should have been last week. And having John Brown's been great, because John Brown has been great. 38 catches, 527 yards this year, not even halfway through the season. But there's not a lot of great teams that are using one playmaker. Yeah, right. They're trying to fully utilize.
And John Brown's playing 52 snaps plus a game, so he's in there, 52 to 73 based on the game. And I think the Bills have it figured out. They have a receiver there, and they have a good slot receiver. I think they have 2 of them filled out. Have some tight end depth and talent potentially. Adding that next receiver is going to be huge, and they have $90 million to do so, Jason. So there's a lot to look forward to on this team. It's all in the development of your quarterback. I think the offensive line's been poor. I really do. For really being excited about the moves that they made. They've been rough lately. So we'll see if they turn that around after gelling a little bit more. Still, Deion Dawkins is their best rated tackle or offensive lineman at this point. The Morse move has shown to be average. He's been average, literally average. So we'll see if that corrects in the second part of the year as they gel more. And hopefully it starts here. Quentin Spain's been average, but that's what they expected from him. So there's room to improve on the offensive line, definitely, to me. So,
and they should get better for putting together an entire offensive line unit at once. 4 new starters, one of them, a half starter being a rookie. Like, that doesn't automatically pay dividends. I still think Ford will be fine, but generally when you plug a rookie in, your team gets worse or your line gets worse for at least the beginning portion of it. So, I expect things to get better because that's just how they're supposed to happen as long as they're healthy.
And I mean, Ty Nseki's been better. So the problem is, like, you should be playing Ty. He's been a really decent average right tackle. I think that makes the line better today. And then apparently they just have no interest in working Dawkins at the guard spot. They like enough of Feliciano, who struggled to me. He had, after a couple of really good starts to the season, he has struggled in the last 2 games to me. So I don't know. I guess they're not willing to make that move, though. So we'll see what happens in this Washington game. I think they have a chance to get right in a lot of their units, and get right quickly, if that's the right word to use. Tyler Kroft has shown that maybe he has something. I like the way he plays when he plays. 33 snaps last week, so we're probably looking at a 40 snap day here for him here soon. As Knox has pretty much steadily been about a 30 snap player. And they have a good blocking tight end, Lee Smith. He really, the penalties make him not playable, Jason. But I think that this unit,
like 5 years ago,
I know,
it's the same exact.
But when he's not getting penalties, he really is a solid player.
Blocker is. I know that he's a good blocker because I can see it. I watch the games. But when you're averaging 2 holding penalties a game, right, and then adding in a false start every 3, like you're not helping the team.
Right. Okay. I'm not going to argue that. And Kroft has shown to be a good blocker so far to me in limited action that I've seen him block in. So, which is,
I think he's going to be really taking over, like, true.
He should just be a true traditional starting tight end to me.
Most of your snaps, when you're playing, any one tight end set.
Yeah, you can bring Lee Smith in for occasional blocking schemes and Dawson Knox for receiving schemes, but this should be pretty straightforward. All right, Jason, score prediction. Let's get into it. What do you got in this week?
Man, I can't predict them to blow anyone out.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a nice 27-10.
Okay.
Solid win, cover the spread, get the home crowd into it. It's going to be a little chilly. It's not supposed to rain, but it's going to be cold. I was seeing forecasts as low as like 43 degrees. So it's going to be a different sort of game than they've had all year, but the crowd's going to be there on fire. And we're probably going to be playing against a rookie quarterback with a depleted running back group and et cetera. I think that we can, every week I say we're going to do something where we're going to take advantage of these things. We're going to get our pick 6, or we're going to change the game recovering a fumble. And I don't quite count an onside kick return touchdown is that sort of thing that was sort of at the end of the game. But I'd love to win the turnover battle. I think that would make a big difference if we were +3 one of these games, and just make it really hard for a team to overcome those sort of things.
I agree with you. And I have a little bit, my score, I have them scoring 13. So Washington, I think, is going to get to 13. In that Miami game, I also think that they knew the time, the management. I think that situation is different. Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't run down the field and score that touchdown either. So I kind of washed out with the kick return touchdown onside kick. I have the Bills going up and only scoring 24 in this game to 13. So I have it 6 points closer than you do. I have 24-13, but I will say,
cover.
Yep. I'm going to say, though, that it's going to be a late touchdown or points by Washington, though. So I think they'll have the game in hand.
We're not going to struggle through this one?
No. I think that the Bills will have the majority of their points and kind of probably just sit on it, and Washington might have 6 at the time, and then they'll score and get to 13. That's my prediction, that that'll be pretty much 21-6 for a lot of it, with mostly having the game in hand and ending up at a 24-13 mark. Comfortable.
That would be cool to jump off to like a good start
I think that's what happens in this
and
one.
play
And
a
then,
good third quarter.
yeah, I think this will
Both
be
of
the
them.
one where the fourth quarter just kind of just salt and
Like a Giants game.
yeah, I think that's what I'm looking at here. I think it'll be like a pretty big replica more of that game. And I guess it could change with a good Keenum, but he hasn't been good even when playing. He's been serviceable. But with Haskins, Jason, I think that could be the kicker for defensive points, defensive touchdowns and stuff. So I'm going with an average of I'm maybe Keenan on play with my 24-13, but that might change Sunday if Haskins is starting. So those are our predictions here on the Kevin and Jason show. Thanks for tuning in with us on this great, windy, rainy Halloween day. Hopefully some of you are able to make it out to the game on Sunday. The show's always presented by Cover One. Special shout out to those guys. Great apps, great premium content, some of the best in the business. Break down the quarterback every week on WGR on their Sunday segment.
Great segment.
So much good stuff out there all around. So make sure you check that out. Premium content Slack group. There's a lot that comes with that. Thank you. Please support our show, YouTube, and as well as iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts. Please thumbs up help, ratings help, especially as the unit and the entire organization get sponsors. So really, we really thank all of our listeners, and hopefully the Bills can break this streak, Jason. That's kind of how I'm going to leave it. Can the Bills break this streak to get to their sixth win? I think that's 0-17 before week 14, Jason, to get their sixth win when not having 5 wins. I think that's an interesting stat to me.
I want to close this show out with that stat.
Yeah, I know. I didn't. You know why I'm closing it out though? Because it's going to be 1 here today or on Sunday. Yeah. So I think that's the point of that stat is it's going to be 1-16 when trying to get their 6th win before when having 5 before week 14. I think it's going to be done this week in week 9, and the team has a very favorable schedule to get to 9 wins. 8 or 9 wins before that Dallas game. So, Jason, always a great show. But from the Kevin and Jason show, I'm Kevin. That's Jason.
Thanks, guys.